In the pouring rain on a stormy Chicago night, Ryland Thompson gripped the steering wheel tighter as his app pinged with a new ride request from a stranger named Parker. Little did he know that picking up this soaked, desperate man would unravel his entire life and force him to confront the love he had buried deep inside. The wipers slashed back and forth across the windshield, barely keeping up with the deluge that turned Michigan Avenue into a river. Ryland glanced at the rearview mirror, his knuckles white. At 28, he had mastered the art of small talk with strangers, but tonight something felt different, heavier. His old Honda Civic smelled of wet leather and cheap coffee, and the radio hummed a soft indie track he barely registered. Parker slid into the back seat, dripping water everywhere, his designer coat clinging to broad shoulders. "Thanks for coming so fast," he said, voice low and steady despite the chaos outside. "I thought I'd be stuck there all night." Ryland nodded, pulling away from the curb near the Art Institute. "No problem. Where to?" Parker gave an address in Lincoln Park, then fell silent, staring out the window as city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. Ryland stole a glance in the mirror. Parker was strikingly handsome, maybe 30, with sharp jawline and eyes that carried a quiet storm of their own. Something about the way he sat, shoulders slightly hunched, made Ryland's chest tighten. He had seen hundreds of passengers, but this one felt like he was carrying the weight of the world. The silence stretched until Parker spoke again. "Rough night for driving, huh?" Ryland chuckled softly. "You could say that. Pays the bills, though." Parker leaned forward a little. "What do you do when you're not behind the wheel?" The question caught Ryland off guard. Most riders barely looked up from their phones. "I'm studying graphic design part-time. Nights like this keep the lights on." Parker smiled faintly. "Creative type. I respect that. I used to sketch a lot before life got complicated." Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 tiny fists. Ryland felt an unexpected pull, the kind he had trained himself to ignore. Growing up in a tight-knit Italian family on the South Side, he had learned early that certain feelings were better left unspoken. His parents still asked when he would bring home a nice girl and settle down. Every holiday dinner was a reminder that his truth didn't fit their picture. As they crossed the river, traffic slowed to a crawl. Parker cleared his throat. "You ever feel like you're living someone else's script?" Ryland's grip loosened slightly. "Every day." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Parker met his eyes in the mirror, and for a second the storm outside seemed to quiet. "Me too. Name's Parker, by the way." "Parker Hayes." "Ryland Thompson." They shook hands awkwardly over the seat. Parker's palm warmed despite the cold. The conversation flowed then, easy and real. Parker talked about running a small tech startup that had taken off faster than he expected, about late nights coding alone because trust was hard to come by. Ryland shared pieces of his own story, the scholarship he fought for, the apartment he could barely afford, the way his best friend Jake kept pushing him to just come out already. By the time they reached the elegant brownstone in Lincoln Park, the rain had eased to a steady drizzle. Parker hesitated before opening the door. "Hey, Ryland. Thanks for listening. Most people just want the fare." He handed over a generous tip through the app and paused. "If you ever want to grab coffee and talk more, no pressure." Ryland's heart stuttered. "Yeah, maybe." Parker stepped out, turning once to wave before disappearing inside. Ryland sat there a moment, engine idling, replaying every word. He had felt seen tonight in a way that scared him. Shaking it off, he accepted the next ride and drove into the night, unaware that his phone would light up with a different kind of message just hours later. Back at his cramped studio apartment, Ryland peeled off his damp shirt and collapsed onto the couch. The clock read 11:47 p.m. His mother had left a voicemail earlier, reminding him about Sunday dinner and asking if he was seeing anyone special. He deleted it without listening twice. Jake texted, "Still hiding from the world, bro? Call me." Ryland tossed the phone aside. Tonight's conversation with Parker lingered like the scent of rain on pavement. He wondered what it would feel like to drop the mask completely, to let someone in without calculating the cost. Sleep came slowly, filled with fragmented dreams of glowing city streets and a stranger's quiet smile. The next morning arrived too soon. Ryland was halfway through his second cup of coffee when his phone rang with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, assuming another spam call. But something made him answer. "Is this Ryland Thompson?" The voice on the other end was professional, clipped. "This is attorney Elena Vargas from Hayes Legal Group. Mr. Parker Hayes passed away early this morning. You've been named the sole beneficiary in his revised will. We need you to come in immediately." Ryland's mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the tile floor. The words refused to land. Passed away? Sole beneficiary? The man he had driven for 30 minutes last night, the one who had shared pieces of his soul in the rain, was gone. And now everything Parker had built was somehow his. Ryland stood frozen in his tiny kitchen, coffee pooling around broken ceramic. "There must be a mistake," he managed. Attorney Vargas's tone stayed calm. "No mistake, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Hayes updated his will at 1:15 a.m. last night after your ride. He left explicit instructions that you receive everything, including the company's shares, properties, and liquid assets totaling just over $42 million. Please come to our office at 10. We'll explain the details." The line went dead. Ryland sank to the floor, glass cutting into his palm. 42 million. The number felt like a joke told in bad taste. He had barely scraped together rent last month. Now this. His mind raced back to Parker's tired eyes in the rearview mirror, the way he had asked if Ryland ever felt trapped in someone else's script. What had happened between dropping him off and that late-night call to his lawyer? He cleaned up the mess with shaking hands, bandaged the cut, and called in sick to his day job at the coffee shop. Jake answered on the second ring. "Dude, you sound like you saw a ghost." Ryland's voice cracked. "I think I did. Remember that passenger I mentioned? He died, and apparently left me everything." Silence stretched. Then Jake laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "Very funny. Come on, what's really up?" When Ryland repeated the lawyer's words, Jake's tone shifted. "Holy shit. You serious? That's insane. But why you? You just met the guy." Ryland had no answer. He showered, pulled on his only decent button-down, and headed downtown, heart hammering against his ribs. The law firm occupied the top floor of a glass tower overlooking the lake. Elena Vargas greeted him with a firm handshake and led him into a conference room lined with leather chairs. Mr. Hayes was very clear. He recorded a video statement at 1:30 a.m. "We'll play it for you now." The screen flickered to life. Parker sat at his desk, still in the damp coat from the night before, eyes red-rimmed but steady. "If you're watching this, Ryland, I'm gone. I know it's crazy. We talked for half an hour, and I felt more understood than I have in years. My family never accepted who I am. They tolerated the money, but not the man. Last night you listened without judgment, without wanting anything. That's rare. I changed my will because you reminded me what real connection feels like. The company, the houses, the accounts, they're yours. Use them to live honestly. Don't hide anymore. I wish we had more time." The video ended. Ryland's throat closed. Parker had been gay too. The quiet hints in the car suddenly made sense, the shared weight of secrets. Vargas slid documents across the table. "The will is ironclad, but his family will contest it. They've already hired top attorneys. You'll need representation. We can help." Ryland's head spun. He thought of his own parents, how they would react to millions landing in their son's lap from a man they had never met. Would they even believe he wasn't some kind of opportunist? Outside, the city hummed under clearing skies. Ryland walked the lakefront for hours, wind whipping his jacket. Parker's words echoed, "Don't hide anymore." But coming out now, tied to this inheritance, felt like stepping into a spotlight he had spent years avoiding. His phone buzzed constantly, Jake demanding details, his mother asking why he missed lunch. He ignored them all. That evening he met Jake at their usual dive bar in Wicker Park. Jake's eyes were wide. "Dude, this is your ticket out. Sell the company, travel, live free." Ryland stared into his beer. "It's not that simple. Parker left it because he saw something in me. I can't just cash out like it's lottery money." Jake leaned in, voice dropping. "Look, I've been your friend since high school. I know you're gay. I've covered for you with your folks for years. But this changes everything. People will talk. They'll say you slept with him for the cash." The words stung like salt in a fresh wound. Ryland pushed his glass away. "I didn't even know his last name until the lawyer called." Jake shrugged. "Truth doesn't matter when money's involved. Just be careful who you trust." The warning settled heavy between them. For the first time, Rylan wondered if his oldest friend's loyalty had limits. Back home, he opened the folder Vargas had given him. Bank statements showed Parker's quiet philanthropy, scholarships for LGBTQ youth, support for homeless shelters. The man had built an empire, but lived alone. Rylan thought about the family Parker mentioned, the one that never accepted him. He wondered if they were already plotting to take it all back. Sleep evaded him again. At 3 a.m., he pulled out his sketchbook and drew Parker's face from memory, the soft glow of dashboard lights on his cheekbones. The lines came easy, raw and honest. For the first time in years, Rylan allowed himself to feel the ache of wanting something real. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was Parker's last act of faith in a stranger who had briefly made the rain feel less lonely. The next morning, Rylan's inbox overflowed with media requests. Somehow word had leaked. "Mysterious Uber driver inherits tech millionaire's empire," screamed one headline. His phone rang nonstop. He silenced it and drove to the lawyer's office again. Vargas looked grim. Parker's brother, Derek, filed an emergency injunction claiming undue influence. "They're painting you as a predator who manipulated a vulnerable man in his final hours." Rylan's stomach dropped. "I didn't even know he was sick." She nodded. He kept his heart condition private. "The video statement helps, but public opinion is turning fast. We need to prepare your statement." Outside the window, Chicago stretched gray and endless. Rylan thought of his mother's Sunday dinners, the way she still set a place for a future daughter-in-law. Telling her the truth now felt impossible, yet staying silent felt like betraying Parker's final wish. He spent the afternoon at Parker's Lincoln Park brownstone, now technically his. The place was minimalist, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the park, bookshelves lined with design annuals and worn novels. In the study, Rylan found a letter addressed to him in Parker's neat handwriting. "Rylan, if you're reading this, I didn't get the chance to say it in person. That ride wasn't random. I called for a car because I needed to feel ordinary again before the end. You gave me that. I saw my younger self in your eyes, the fear mixed with hope. Don't make my mistakes. Love openly. The money is just a tool. Use it to build something that matters. And if you ever doubt yourself, remember the rain." Tears blurred the page. Parker had planned to tell him everything the next day, but his heart gave out before dawn. The letter ended with a simple line. "You were the first person who made me feel seen in a very long time." Rylan sat on the leather couch until the sun dipped low. His phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "This is Derek Hayes. We need to talk before this gets uglier." "Coffee at 4. Against his better judgment, Rylan agreed. They met at a quiet cafe near the lake. Derek was taller than Parker, sharper features, tailored suit. "My brother was confused at the end," he said without preamble. "He never mentioned you until that video. Whatever you did to influence him, will prove it." Rylan kept his voice even. "I drove him home." "That's it." Derek leaned closer. "You're gay, aren't you? The tabloids are already digging. Imagine what your conservative family will think when they learn their son inherited millions from his secret lover." The threat landed like a punch. Rylan stood. "Parker wanted me to have it. End of story." He walked out, heart racing, but something shifted inside him. The old fear of exposure felt smaller than the responsibility Parker had placed in his hands. That night he called his parents. His mother answered on speaker with his father. "Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something important." The words tumbled out. The ride, the death, the inheritance, and finally, "I'm gay. I've always been gay." Silence crackled across the line. His mother's voice trembled. "Rylan, this is a lot to take in. The money people will talk." His father cut in. "We raised you right. This isn't you." The call ended with promises to talk more in person, but Rylan knew the crack had formed. He sat on Parker's balcony watching the city lights flicker on, feeling both lighter and heavier than ever. Jake texted, "Saw the news. You okay?" Rylan replied honestly, "No, but I'm figuring it out." The following days blurred into meetings with accountants, board members of Parker's company who eyed him with suspicion, and reporters camped outside the brownstone. Rylan's best friend's warning echoed louder. One afternoon, Jake showed up unannounced, eyes nervous. "Look, man, I might have mentioned something to a reporter friend. Just background. I thought it would help control the narrative." Betrayal tasted metallic. "You sold me out." Jake shifted. It's millions, Ree. People deserve to know the truth. Rylan asked him to leave. Alone again, he realized Parker's gift came with strings he never anticipated. The need to protect a legacy while learning to stand in his own truth. The court hearing loomed like a gathering storm. Derek's legal team presented texts, bank records, anything that could suggest manipulation. Rylan sat beside Vargas, palms sweating. The judge reviewed Parker's video statement twice. The deceased was of sound mind, she ruled. The will stands pending full discovery. Relief washed over Rylan, but the victory felt hollow. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions about his sexuality, his relationship with Parker, the convenient timing. He pushed through them, head down, and drove straight to the one place that still felt safe, the coffee shop where he used to work. His old manager hugged him tight. "We're proud of you, kid. Whatever the papers say." For the first time in weeks, Rylan smiled genuinely. He ordered his usual and sat in the corner booth, sketching idly. A young barista named Alex, barely 20, slid into the seat across from him. "I saw the news. I'm gay too. Seeing someone like you stand up, it means something." They talked for an hour about coming out, family pressure, the fear that never fully left. Rylan realized Parker's money could fund scholarships, community centers, places where kids like Alex wouldn't have to hide. The idea took root, quiet but strong. That evening he met with Parker's former assistant, a sharp woman named Lena who had been with him for 8 years. "He talked about you nonstop after that ride," she said over sushi. "Said you were the realest conversation he'd had in years. He changed the will right after you dropped him off. I witnessed it." Her words confirmed what the video showed. Lena handed him a flash drive. "His private journals. Read them when you're ready. They're full of regrets about never finding someone to share his life with." Rylan pocketed it, throat tight. Back at the brownstone, he opened the first entry dated 3 years earlier. Parker had written about the loneliness of success, the dates that ended when partners learned about the money, the family that only called when checks were due. Page after page echoed Rylan's own fears. By midnight, he had read every word. Parker hadn't just given him money. He had given him permission to stop running. The next morning, Rylan woke to a text from his mother. "Come to dinner Sunday. We love you. We're trying. Small, but enough." He spent the day at Parker's company headquarters, meeting the team. The CEO, a no-nonsense woman named Claire, pulled him aside. "Your inheritance comes with responsibility." Parker wanted the company to stay ethical, to give back. "Don't let the board push you around." Rylan nodded, feeling the weight settle differently now, less like a burden and more like a calling. In the afternoon, he visited the youth shelter Parker had quietly funded. The director cried when he introduced himself. "Mr. Hayes saved so many kids. Now you're here." It's like he knew. Jake tried calling again, apologetic, but Rylan let it ring. Some friendships. He was learning, fractured under pressure, and never fully mended. Instead, he reached out to Alex from the coffee shop and offered him a paid internship at the company, graphic design work on new outreach campaigns. The kid's gratitude reminded Rylan why Parker had chosen him. That night, he stood on the balcony again, city lights stretching forever. He whispered into the dark, "I'm trying, Parker. I'm really trying." The media storm intensified when Derek leaked old photos of Parker at Pride events, framing the inheritance as some twisted gay agenda. Rylan's family faced questions at church. His father called, voice strained. "Son, this isn't what we raised you for." Rylan answered quietly, "Dad, this is exactly who I am. The money doesn't change that." The conversation ended in tears on both ends, but something honest had finally passed between them. Rylan channeled the pain into action. He met with a nonprofit consultant and outlined plans to expand Parker's scholarship program, adding mental health support for LGBTQ youth rejected by families. The board initially resisted, citing profit margins, but Rylan stood firm. "Parker left this to me because he trusted my heart. We do it my way, or I sell everything and start fresh." The room fell silent. They agreed. One afternoon, he drove the same route from that rainy night, replaying every moment. At the Art Institute corner, he pulled over, engine idling, and let himself feel the full weight of loss. Parker had been a stranger for 30 minutes and a lifeline forever. Back at the brownstone, Lena waited with more documents. Derek dropped the contest. "The settlement offer is generous, but you don't have to take it. Rylan read the papers and pushed them away. Tell him to keep his money. Parker's legacy stays intact. The decision lifted something heavy off his chest. He called Jake one last time. I forgive you, but I need space. Real friends don't sell stories. Jake's apology sounded genuine, but the trust was gone. Rylan hung up feeling lighter. Sunday dinner at his parents' house was tense, but real. His mother set an extra plate anyway. We don't understand everything, she said, serving lasagna, but you're our son. That hasn't changed. His father nodded once, eyes misty. Just be careful out there. Rylan told them about the scholarships, about using the money to help kids who felt invisible. For the first time, they listened without interrupting. Later, his younger sister pulled him aside. I always knew, you know. I'm proud of you. The hug lasted longer than usual. Driving home, Rylan realized acceptance wasn't a single moment. It was 1,000 small steps, each one braver than the last. He threw himself into redesigning the company's branding, incorporating subtle rainbow elements in the new app update. The team responded with surprising enthusiasm. Claire pulled him aside again. You're good at this. Parker saw that in one car ride. Don't doubt yourself. That night, he opened Parker's journal to the last entry, written hours before the ride. I'm tired of pretending the money fills the empty spaces. Tonight, I'm calling a random car and just talking to someone real. Wish me luck. Rylan closed the book and cried for the first time since the lawyer's call. The tears felt like release. 6 months later, the new youth center opened with Parker's name on the door. Rylan stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, surrounded by kids who looked at him like he was proof that things could get better. Alex, now full-time on staff, gave a speech that ended with, "One rainy night changed everything." Never underestimate a single conversation. Rylan's parents attended, sitting quietly in the back row. His mother squeezed his hand afterward. We're learning, sweetheart. Slowly. His father managed a gruff, good job, son. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The company thrived under new ethical policies. Profits funneled partly into community grants. Rylan kept the brownstone, turning the study into a studio where he sketched late into the night. He dated cautiously, meeting men who saw him, not the money. None replaced the brief connection with Parker, but that was okay. Some lights were meant to guide, not stay forever. One evening, he drove past the Art Institute again, rain starting to fall softly. He smiled at the memory of soaked shoes and honest words. Parker had given him more than millions. He had given him courage to live openly, to love without shame, to build something that mattered. Jake reached out once more, this time with a sincere apology and no agenda. They met for coffee, talked like old times, and Rylan realized some friendships could heal if both sides tried. The city lights glowed brighter through the drizzle as he drove home. He thought about the question that had haunted him since that first phone call. Was the inheritance a gift or a burden? Looking back, it was neither and both. It was a mirror forcing him to see himself clearly, a bridge between the man he hid and the man he was becoming. Rylan parked the car, same old Honda he refused to replace because it carried the memory of that night. He sat for a moment listening to rain tap the roof. Thank you, Parker, he whispered. The storm eased, leaving streets shining like new beginnings. True or false? A single rainy night and one honest conversation can rewrite your entire future?